comes from small compounding decisions that you make on a daily basis over time, where it gets you to a point where you're not even setting goals anymore around that certain thing. It's just who you are.
Welcome to the Reclaim Your Rise podcast. My name is Lauren Bongiorno, nationally board certified health coach and founder and CEO of Risely Health, where we help people and families impacted by type 1 diabetes take ownership over their lives so that they can transform with more freedom and confidence. Everyone has a different reason to be here. You might be seeking knowledge, support, or community, but at your core, I know that you long for something deeper. You're here for transformation. And that's what the Reclaim Your Rise podcast is all about. A quick reminder before we start the show that nothing you hear on the Reclaim Your Rise podcast should be a substitute for personalized professional medical advice. Please always consult your physician or other medical professional before making any changes to your diet, insulin dosages, or healthcare plan. If you're someone who is currently feeling exhausted and terribly frustrated by your diabetes physically and emotionally, and you have a feeling that if you just had better support and a better tool set and roadmaps, that it could be incredibly transformational for your health and your entire life, I'm really excited to share that we are currently open for enrollment for our first Decide and Conquer group coaching cohort of 2024. If you don't know, the DCB is Risely's 12-week signature coaching program for women with type 1 diabetes who are feeling discouraged and isolated and overwhelmed and are craving more confidence and empowerment in their lives with their numbers and mindset and all of it. We've had over 400 women graduate from this program over the years, and they all were once where you're sitting literally right now on the sidelines, listening to me talk about the program or listening to stories of other people change their lives, wondering if that it's possible for themselves to do that too. It might be hard to believe, but this program is already filling up. So if today's episode inspires you to want to make a change for your T1D, don't wait to apply. After you do, wait to receive an email within 48 hours to book a call with Abby or Alyssa from the Risely team. And I hope to see you in the program. And who knows, maybe even one day have you as a podcast guest inspiring others with your transformation. Before we roll today's episode, I would be remiss if I didn't share with you that today marks the 100th episode of the Reclaim Your Rise show. This is so exciting, and it just feels very fitting that we'd hit it on the first one out of the gate for the new year. We didn't even plan for that. It just happened. I feel like that's a good omen for this year. And so I just genuinely want to thank each and every one of you for all of your support in us just growing the show, especially over the past year. It has thousands of downloads each week from people all across the globe. And that's because of you tuning in and sharing it on social media and rating and reviewing it to help other people in the diabetes community find us. So big thank you, big gratitude. I wanted to do a giveaway to express that to you and also just celebrate this day. And so one person is going to be selected to receive a $100 Amazon gift card. And to enter, all you have to do are 4 very simple things. Rate the podcast, press the follow buttons, so subscribe to the podcast, follow Risely Health on Instagram, and then comment on today's Instagram post on the Risely page, so January 2nd, and put a orange heart emoji next to it so that we know that you're entering the giveaway. And then in 1 week, so next Tuesday, we'll announce the winner on the Risely Instagram stories and tag you, and then we'll also send you a direct message, so keep an eye out for that. And then separately, our podcast producer, Alyssa, sent some stats of the show from 2023 to me this morning that I thought would be cool to share. So last year, the podcast was downloaded in 107 countries, and the top 5 countries were the US, Canada, Australia, the UK, and Germany. So shout out to you if you were in those countries tuning in. And then the most downloads by city were New York City, Chicago, LA, Melbourne, and Seattle. So shout out to you guys. And then lastly, if you want to listen to the episodes that were like top downloads from last year, our top 5 episodes were an inside look at my diet as someone with an A1C below 6.0 and above 80% time in range. That was episode 62. How to tactically bounce back from low blood sugar incidents. That was episode 46. Use this 4-tier approach to lower your A1C and increase your time in range, episode 49. The Truth About Weight Loss and T1D, episode 83. And then Story Time, the worst high blood sugar I've had in a while, episode 66.
So you can go back and listen to those. And once again, thank you so much for all of your support of the show. We can't wait to see what's in store for the next year. And on that note, let's roll today's episode. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Reclaim Your Rise. This is the top of the new year, and we are kicking off with an episode on intention setting, getting into the headspace of, all right, it's game time. It's 2024. We're kind of leaving the holidays behind us. And whether you've taken some time already or not to reflect on 2023 and planned, maybe set some goals, did a vision board for 2024, whether you've done that or not, this episode is still going to be beneficial, because if you have done that, this is just going to like double you down into that energy of like, let's get our heads in the game. And if you haven't, this will be a good, just, like, let's do something before the new year is like in its full effect. And maybe even take some time after this to journal, write some thoughts down that come up as I'm talking. And yeah, just take this space, because I think, I am not somebody who's a big journaler throughout the year per se. However, I have a folder that is like thick of papers for all of end of the year reviews and like, upcoming year planning since 2016, I believe. And I really do think that the person that I am today, the vision that I have, where I am in my life personally and professionally, like, is a result of steering the ship and of pausing and saying, what areas do I have to grow? And where do I not feel fulfilled? And where do I need to course correct to align more with my values and the vision that I have of myself and my future? I really do think that like doing something like that before the new year, is a way for you to not just be a product of time passing. I think that the, days and the weeks and the years, it's, 365 is going to go pretty fast. And before you know it, we're going to be, through that in the next year in 2025. And what you do with that time, is going to determine your outcomes. And so you could either be a product of just the time passing and your outcomes kind of being the same and just going through the motions, or you can play a role in, hey, I want to get to a certain version of myself, this next level, this next evolution, and I have agency over that. And you do. And just know that from the start of this episode, like, you have agency over your outcomes. The vision that you have for yourself and your life is possible for you. You are not stuck where you are. Life is going to happen to you and to us. We're going to have, loved ones pass and things with work not going our way, or, this happened or this happened. And we're not in control of that. And we can't, necessarily like nix that from the 2024 plan and prevent those things from happening. But we can set ourselves up to control the things we can control, to spend energy where we intentionally want to spend it, and to know that like how we respond to those things when they do happen is more so going to determine our outcomes rather than just those things alone happening to us. So my approach for planning for the new year, I'm going to share with you a 3-part framework in a second, but just generally overall every year, what I tend to do since 2016 is I pick a theme of the year, and that theme often ends up going at the center of my vision board that I draw, and I, cut out things from magazines and I write things on them, and then I put it somewhere. Actually, I have to say, this is the first year that I put it somewhere visible. Usually it goes like in my closet. And I don't know why I was doing that for years, because I'm like, I created this whole big vision board and now I'm not even like looking at it. So I hung it up on my office wall this year. And I have to say, it was made such an incredible difference, because I had a really great personal and professional year, like a lot of, and I say that because it was aligned with what I set out to do in 2023. And I think it was because I kept the vision a lot front of mind. So I create this theme of the year, which I'll share my theme from 2023 with you in a bit, and what my theme of 2024 is going to be. And then I'll also really just like think about surrounding personality traits of like, who do I need to be in order to feel this certain way. So actually, I'll just share it with you now. So in 2023, my word was rooted. ROOTED, rooted. And I was feeling called at the beginning of last year. I was just like, I think 2022 was like a big growth and learning year for me. And I was just like, I need to root down like personally and professionally into like foundational core elements of like repetition and consistency with them, instead of trying to like grow in like 20 different directions. And I did that really well this year in just having consistency with certain habits that I just like hadn't had before. Like an example, like personally in my relationship with my husband, with Chris, I just got really good this year at like monthly looking at, which is not, this is not like a, like an invention or like anything like so crazy, but like it just wasn't something that we had done prior to this, but like really looking at our finances every single year, every single month, and being like, okay, like how are we, where are we spending our money, and does this make sense, and does this align with like the savings that we want to have to invest in, certain things in the future. And so like that alone is not something that was like a huge goal of like, I don't know, like run a marathon. However, the consistency of that allowed us to feel, and me personally to feel at the end of this year, like, wow, like I was consistent every month with that. And that made me feel more in control and just more, financially healthy, I guess, in a way, or like responsible would be the word. And especially it was our first year of marriage. So like doing that made sense. But yeah, like that's like one example. So I create this like theme of the year, and then personality traits of like things this theme would allow, or like how I want to show up. So like that's one example. Other things could be in terms of being rooted, not like rushing to the train station every single morning, right? Like I could put down not necessarily like a goal on the vision board of like don't rush to the train when you're going to the city, but more so like leave yourself enough time and space so you're not rushing. Or another one that I had on the vision board was like being the opposite of rooted to me is like impulsive and kind of just like making decisions and just like not thinking through everything. And so something I had on the vision board was like pause and see all the angles. It was something like that. So just like little reminders like that, so I can check in throughout the year of kind of like, are you living in alignment with the theme that you set out for this year, and where you want to grow. And then in addition to that, I will mix in, and this is where I think people go wrong, I will mix in just a few, I'm talking like one or two more tactical, hard goals. I do it more obviously I do it a ton for Risely and for the business and the company, because if you're just like, all right, let's just see what happens with Risely this year, and you don't have goals about, growth in certain areas, like that wouldn't be good. But I'm talking more so like personally, I feel like where people go wrong is they'll create like 5 or 10 goals for themselves. Okay, I want to meal prep 5 times a week, and I want to exercise and go to the gym 3 times a week, and I want to do this and this and this. And it's like, you'd probably be more satisfied with doing one thing consistently all year round and creating a super anchored in habit around that, versus doing 5 or 10 things like on a scale of 0 through 10, like a 5 out of 10 for each one, and kind of not being, consistent with it, and going in and going out. And so really thinking about what is like the number one, maybe two things that you feel are areas that you would not only want to grow in this year, but you feel would make a huge impact on, whether it's your health or your relationships, or, what you are trying to call into your life. I also think that there's a difference between having goals and having a vision of yourself, and being consumed by everything that you are not. So there's a quote that I heard recently, and it's like, don't we don't improve because we're not enough. We improve because it's who we are. And I love that so much, because as humans, we are wired. One of our core needs in life is growth. We have all these needs, right? We have a need for certainty, meaning like, shelter and food and water. We have a need for uncertainty, meaning if life was so routine, we would be bored all the time, right? We need some kind of variety. You have a need for connection. You have a need for growth, is another one of our core needs. So there's all of these, ways we can look at goal setting for the new year. But the number one way not to look at it is like that you are not enough where you are. And if we're speaking specifically like in the context of diabetes and of health, you may have goals for yourself for this new year, but know that like life is happening to you right now. And if we're spending it constantly thinking about the future and us not being where we are, how could you ever truly be present and just enjoy life and just be happy, right? I think happiness is presence. Happiness is contentment. Happiness is now, right? Because if we're thinking about the past, we're thinking about like, oh, we should have done things differently, or I wish it was how we were back then. And if we're thinking about the future, we're anxious about like and overwhelmed about like all the possibilities of things that could happen, or, what if I don't achieve this? What if I fail? What if, I never get there? And it's like, let's just work on ourselves every single day. Let's show up. Let's build habits. Let's be consistent. Let's have these goals, but let's also just honor ourselves where we are today, because truthfully, we are where we are today because of, so many beautiful things that have happened in our lives. And yes, things maybe have not, went 100% right, but give yourself grace in that, as I think is what I'm trying to say. So, on that note, let's go through this 3-part framework. Okay. So, the first part of the framework for goal setting for 2024 is do not set goals without getting to the root of your thoughts, your beliefs, and your feelings. Your thoughts, your beliefs, and your feelings are often subconscious or something that we're not actively paying attention to, but are the things that are contributing to our actions. So our thoughts that we have, which are often like very, very like on a subconscious quick level, they trigger our feelings, and our feelings trigger our actions, right? And so if we need to change our actions, we really need to get to the base of our thoughts and our beliefs, and those determine our feelings, and then our feelings determine our actions. So meaning, if you have a goal to lower your A1C to improve your numbers, just to set a goal of like, okay, I haven't had below a 7 A1C before, but now I'm going to set a goal of getting an A1C below a 7, like that's lazy goal setting in my opinion. It is goal setting that is you're not going to be successful with, because you're not getting to the root of why you haven't had below a 7 in the first place. And sure, it might be educational gaps or more tactical, but more likely than not, there are some things attached to it that have to do with the thoughts, beliefs, and feeling. So for example, as you're reflecting, if you're thinking about like, all right, if I haven't hit this goal in the past, what limiting beliefs have contributed to blocking me to hitting them? And some things that might come up is I'm undeserving of being successful. I don't have what it takes to get me there. I'm terrible at following through on goals. I don't have time to prioritize my diabetes or my health. I don't trust my body or my patterns. I'm paralyzed by where to start and overwhelmed by the commitment. Those are all examples, but if you're taking the time to set a goal, take time to also reflect on what limiting beliefs, feelings, or thoughts have blocked you previously from getting to that goal. Also, just another note here, your thoughts, beliefs, and feelings, they also determine, and this is a little bit woo-woo, but they determine your energetic frequency. So not only are they determining your outcomes, but they are determining your energetic frequency. And your energetic frequency, why that is important is because everything is a mirror for us. How we show up in the world is what is reflected back to us. It's what opportunities come into our path. If we wake up and we're, just our thoughts are, well, today's my schedule is packed. I have 1,000 things going on. It's raining outside, and the dog pooped on the carpet, I don't know, like in the other room, and now the day's going to go bad. If those are the things that you were thinking, like you are not setting yourself up for a day or a life that is going to just allow you to have more opportunities flow in, or just happiness radiated back to you through other people, through like, I don't know, just like interactions in the grocery store that are pleasant versus somebody like, I don't know, banging into you or cutting you off on the road. I truly do believe that like what we put out is what we get back. And so as much as this has to do with kind of like supporting you on the goals kind of area of your 2024 intention setting, it also has to do with just like the way you experience life. When I wake up in the morning time, and this was never the case, like this is of years and years and years of like just retraining my brain to think a certain way, but I swear the first thing I think of is like gratitude. It's like, and it's not even like forcing myself to think like, what are you grateful for today? I think I did that like actively for years of like writing down gratitudes. But when I open my eyes, I'm like, oh, I can see that like there's I don't know, there's, it's raining outside, and how cozy is that? And just like trying to find the positives in things. It's the same reason why, and this is a little bit off book, but like same reason why I stopped watching a lot of reality TV. I will say I did watch part of the Golden Bachelor Bachelor this year because I thought that was just like so sweet, and all the women on the show were just like, it's just so nice, and it was like an older generation and like different than I think like the other seasons of The Bachelor. Sidebar. Anyways, but I do not watch a lot of reality TV because it's gossip and it's negativity, and it just brings your vibration and energetic frequency down to that level where it's like, I want to be filling my brain and I want to be filling my body and my center with things that are like uplifting me and are good and are positive. So just some things to reflect on there. Okay. Number two. Number two is part of the framework is to take holistic inventory. And if you have a goal of like improving your health or your diabetes or whatever it may be, you really don't want to just look at the numbers or the obvious things of like, okay, I need to carb count better, or I need to do this better. 9 out of 10 times, the improvement that you need to have and to get you to your diabetes goal has to do with something that is a very unsuspecting gap in your life. So when you look at the 8 areas of diabetes management, sleep, energy, exercise, peace of mind / stress and anxiety management, nutrition and relationship with food, relationships in your life with like friends, family, and coworker, and self-love and acceptance. So if you look at those 8 areas and you rate them on a scale of 0 through 10, 0 being like I'm totally unfulfilled in this area, 10 being like I'm totally fulfilled in this area, you're going to start to see gaps, and those gaps are going to tell you where you should be kind of spending more of your time nurturing. And that's a good way if you're like, I have no idea what goals to set this year. I'm just like, I don't know. Do I set a goal to like floss more? You know what I mean? Like if you're a little bit lost, do the 8 pillars exercise where you rate each of those 8 areas and then see kind of where your gaps are. And I'll also challenge you, try not to rate anything a 7 because 7 is a cop out number. So if you're wanting to put a 7, make yourself choose between, is it a 6 or is it an 8? We see a lot of people in coaching at Risely, and I can even say this, for myself in the past, but there's this idea that like I have to just continue to be more strict with myself if I want to see my blood sugars improve. And oftentimes, the answer for those people is actually to soften and to look at areas holistically. Maybe it's in their relationships or in their career and work or in their self-love and acceptance where those areas are low, and then they start doing the work there. And then all of a sudden, magically, their diabetes and their blood sugars falls into place. It's kind of like a boat where if there's a hole in one area, it's going to rock everything. And so we got to work on plugging all of these areas and treat ourselves as a whole person and not just like diabetes as a part of us. So that's the second part. And then the third part is I want to encourage you to choose a word for the year. I mentioned this earlier, but this is kind of like your theme of the year. I started doing this in 2017, and now we're 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. This will be my 8th year doing that. And I'm looking back on all of these words and I'm like, wow, it's mind blowing to see how all of them are just like an evolution of who I am today, and how I wasn't really a product of just time passing. Like I was in charge of deciding what the theme was going to be, where I wanted to grow. And then I took those lessons and those habits with me into the next year and built on to the foundation of who I am today. So if we look back on my words, 2017 was bravery. And I'm not going to, it would take too long to go through really like why every year was the word that it was. Bravery in 2017 was, there was a lot of toxicity in my life attached to something that maybe I'll talk about one day. And it took me like, I needed that bravery to like let it go and to just have faith in myself and trust myself and my intuition on like letting this go in my life. So that was 2017. 2018 was like balance. I was still like feeling the just repercussions of that toxicity and that relationship and everything. And I needed to find balance in my life because I was just so out of balance. 2019 was essentialism. 2020, funny enough, was equanimity, which means mental calmness and composure, even in difficult situations. So when the pandemic happened in 2020, I didn't really laugh, but like looking back, I kind of am laughing because I'm like, oh, like I knew before even the world was up and down and tumultuous and just all over the place that like I knew like this year out of all years, I needed to work on my emotions and balancing them. 2021 was lead, build, and expand. That was like a 3-word year. I don't know what I was doing there. It needed to happen. And that was what the year was. 2022 was the year of expression. That's when I started the podcast. It's when I wanted to start finding my voice a little bit more and just expressing and not worrying about like saying the perfect thing or, whatever. 2023 was the year of rooted. And then 2024, where we are today. So I will say picking a word of the year is overwhelming, or at least it is like for me, like there's so much pressure, right? So you kind of want to like create the word and pick the word, but you also want to let it come to you. So I like to journal towards the end of the year just on, and I would encourage you to do this just on like how you want to feel this year. Just like write down words and then you'll have a list of words and certain words will pop out. And then after that, look up the definitions of them. And then you'll start to like, you know, be like, ah, that doesn't sound right. That doesn't sound right. And then you can kind of like pick your words. So right now, as I record this podcast, I'm recording this the week of, what is it? I think it's December 27th right now or 28th. And so I admittedly do not have my word, but I do have 4 words that are contenders, which I'll share with you. And then I'll share my word on Instagram the week this podcast, airs on January 1st or 2nd. But the words that I have this year are blossom, evolution, miracles, and faith. And I don't know what I'm going to land on or what I'm going to choose yet. I need to kind of just like think on it more, talk it out, and, meditate on it. But it's going to be one of those words because miracles doesn't make sense to me, but I keep seeing the word everywhere the past 2 weeks. And I'm like, I never see that word. And like, why is that supposed to be the word? Faith to me, I like because it's complete trust or confidence in someone or something. And I have a feeling that this year, for me personally and professionally, there's just going to be a lot of like change. I don't know. Maybe I'll listen back to this episode in a couple months and be like, oh, like you were onto something there, Lauren. But I just feel like there's going to be a lot of change in my life this year. And in a way where like 2023 was rooted, this is the year of like blossoming, which is why I have blossom as a possible word. But also with that, you need to like just trust that everything's happening, for some reason, or you can find a lesson in it and there and that. And then evolution is the gradual development of something, especially from a simple to more complex form, which goes with change again, because I feel like I am going to go through an evolution this year. It's not going to be just like a rooted down year. It is going to be a growth year. So those are the word contenders I have, but really want to encourage you to think of a word for yourself. And then if you want to and feel called, create a vision board or just write that word down so you can see it every day. I definitely think that what happens when you approach your year like this is that you have this North Star for the person that you are aspiring to be and that you are growing into. And even if at the end of the year you are not 100% that vision of yourself, you are going to be a lot closer to that vision than you were if you just didn't take time to intention set or think about and journal on, that person that you want to be. And then also just remember that like if you are thinking about changing doesn't come from this like one big monumental moment. It really comes from small compounding decisions that you make on a daily basis over time, where it gets you to a point where you're not even setting goals anymore around that certain thing. It's just who you are. So like if I look back on my journal, end of year reflections for like 2017, 2018, there was still stuff going on there where I was setting goals that were very like A1C focused, or I want to exercise this many times a week, or I want to practice yoga this many times a week, or I want to be drinking water every morning I wake up or going to bed by this time. And now I look back on those and I'm like, oh my God, I'm in this such a different place in my life, because it's almost like I have a checkbox around my diabetes and my health that it's just who I am. I've just like become a person that's like who I am, and it's an extension of me. It's habit. It's, how I'm showing up on a daily basis. And I grew in those areas because in those years, those were goals that I was setting. And so over time, you kind of just like mesh and mold into this person without you even realizing it. It's kind of like you wake up and you're like, wow, like I didn't even realize that's where I was a couple of years ago. And now I'm here, and it didn't happen from any one big moment. It happened for myself, pushing myself outside of my comfort zone continuously on a daily or weekly basis. And know that too, like a lot of people will get stuck up in the procrastination stage. And so if you are procrastinating or avoiding doing what you like would benefit you or is going to benefit you, understand why you're procrastinating. So for example, if you are trying to lower your A1C and that's the big goal, and you're like, I just am consistently, procrastinating, I don't know, like looking at my Dexcom clarity reports. You have to do two things. One, you have to recognize that procrastination comes from a feeling of psychological discomfort. So, like, there's some kind of discomfort in either getting started, or you don't have the answers, or you don't feel confident enough. And number two, it comes from, if you're feeling discomfort and because it's this big task that's like looming, break it down into bite-sized pieces so you can be successful and you can feel less overwhelmed. So instead of setting a goal of like lower A1C by 1 point from, I don't know, 8 to 7, think about like, okay, I want to put a timer on my phone to pre-bolus at lunchtime every day, or I want to learn how to fine-tune my rates and ratios. And you're going to have more success with getting started with those things versus this like looming big A1C goal that you have. So break it down into little pieces. Okay. How are we feeling? We're about a half an hour into this episode. Are you guys like, I'm done with you talking now, Lauren? I think like just to recap and bring this all together, the new year for me personally is going to be one of growth. I know it's going to be one of change. It's going to be discomfort. But anytime I look back on years that were not comfortable and there were growing pains, like I had to lean on and learn how to be flexible and agile and adaptable. And I was stronger on the other side. And so I'm keeping in mind that like I'm going to plan for this year, but things may not go to plan. And that's okay, because my only role in that moment is to surrender and is to just go as life happens to us, right? Life's not always fair. Things are going to happen that we're not planning for, but what we can control is how we show up, how we respond to those things that happen to us, and just go through life with our values and our goals just top of mind. So I will leave you guys with that. Happy New Year. Happy 2024. Let's have an incredible year, you guys. We have lots coming down the pipe for Risely in terms of new coaching programs and resources and all of the things. So keep showing up on Tuesdays to listen to the show. Let us know also what kind of episodes you want to hear this year. Thank you in advance for rating the show, for subscribing. It helps it grow. It helps other people, find us. And I'll stop blabbering now. All right, guys, have a good rest of your first week of January, and I'll see you same time, same place next week. Bye.
Thank you so much for being here with me today and listening to this episode of Reclaim Your Rise. To let us know that the episodes we're putting out are impactful, and to help us get our street cred up and let everyone else know that this is something worthy of their time to listen to, please leave a rating and review on our Apple Podcast, send the show to other people impacted by T1D or maybe even your doctor, and share it on social media tagging @Risely Health and @Lauren_Bongiorno. New episodes of Reclaim Your Rise come out every single Tuesday, so make sure you are subscribed to the podcast so that you never miss a beat. Thanks again for listening, and as always, remember, diabetes is a challenge that we did not choose, but one that we can rise above.